All right, guys, so today in front of me from Stellum Spirits, we have the Lone Cypress. So this is part of Stellum's new Black Label Specialty Blend. What we know is that it is a blend of cask-strength rye whiskeys distilled in Indiana, Kentucky, and Tennessee. This one comes in at 115.34 proof. Couldn't be more excited to get into it, guys. So without further ado, let's go. All right, guys, so as I stated, this is a blend of cask-strength rye whiskeys distilled in Indiana, Tennessee, and Kentucky, and it comes in at 115.34 proof. I'm not able to get any of the details of the specific blends as nothing was stated on the site. Let's go ahead and get to the nose. So yeah, a little bit further into the glass, this one is very earthy on the nose. So you do pick up some of that rye itself, but there's also like this black tea note that starts to appear. Further away from the glass, it is kind of orchard fruit heavy. There's a little bit of apricot in there as well. Yeah, so I know in the description they mentioned almost like a sea salty brininess, and further into the glass, I actually definitely get that. I can see where that's coming from. Again, so like further away, you do pick up some apricot, some orchard fruits. Further into the glass, there is that kind of sea salty brininess. There is a little bit of black pepper, a little bit of some like black tea. So you get more earthy. The further into the glass you go, the further away it becomes more fruit dominated. It's an interesting, very interesting nose, though. I will say that. And then, right there with that, like, black pepper and black tea, it's almost like this almond note that kind of sits in between that earthiness and that fruitiness. It's like that happy medium. Pretty interesting nose, guys. Let's get in the palate. Cheers. Boy, that'll smack you with flavor. Good God. That may be the biggest rush of earthy spice with a swirl of fruit that I've ever had. That was a wild first sip right there. I mean, again, that 115 proof definitely shows its colors. You do feel that proof all over the palate from the front to the back. The rye spice makes an appearance, though, on the middle of the palate and into the finish, pulling some black pepper down with it. The front of the palate, so it's weird. So the front of the palate, that almond note that I picked up on the nose, made a brief appearance there. But then there's like this pine note that starts to appear, like right before that pepper onto the finish, like mid to back palate. A little bit of pine, black pepper that pulls through with some rye spice. Yeah, that was just such a rush of earthiness, a little bit of fruit and some rye spice. Just it was just like it flew by the palate, just all across it. Really nice first sip, though. Really, really nice and kind of unique flavor profile, but in a good way. Let's get into the second sip, guys. So, that second sip flipped the script completely. I was not expecting the flavors to appear the way they did on that second sip. It's like everything changed after that first sip. First sip, I was almost expecting the same kind of notes. No, it said, you know what, we're going to go ahead and change up on you a little bit. And it did, completely. So now, like on the front of the palate, there's just like this orchard fruit sweetness that starts to appear there. A lot of orchard fruit, a little bit of that apricot makes an appearance there on the mid palate. Rye spice is still present, but now that pine note has actually kind of moved forward up into that mid palate, where before it was into that mid to back palate, into the finish with that black pepper that kind of pulled down. But now it's kind of mingling around with that rye spice. So again, definitely fruity, fruit forward, orchard fruits, and then that middle of the palate, like I said, you start to get some of that rye spice, and then And then, yeah, it's just like that pine kind of moved forward. I mean, it wasn't the mid to back, and then it kind of moved forward there with that rye spice now. It makes for a very interesting flavor. Black pepper kind of dominating the finish. I like the finish, though, because this one, I think it like kind of pulls the proof burn down as well as maintaining some of that spice bite down through, into the finish. Man, this is a wild ride of a rye whiskey right here. Some pretty interesting flavors. I mean, who knows what I'm going to get on the next sip? I mean, it could change again. Man, that's wild. That's wild. It's like wizardry. Let's get a last sip, guys. Cheers. All right, I don't know what kind of hocus pocus goes on over there, but I'm going to tell you. This thing changed again. You talk about an evolving rye. This may be, and quote me word for word here, this may be one of the most evolving rye whiskeys I've maybe ever had. I mean, it's just like you're talking about, like, just from sip to sip to sip, it's completely changed after each one. Like, now I'm getting like this kind of like peach jam. There's like this where the pine was before on that mid to back palate into the finish. I get like this tarragon where it's like where it's like a little citrusy, and then also some of that, like a hint of black licorice that's kind of mixed with that pine and rye spice. So now all that has kind of shifted from the middle of the palate into the back and into the finish with that black pepper. But then on the front of the palate into the mid palate, it becomes this like peach jam, apricot. It's like it's shifting all over the tongue. It's all over the place. It's like it's like a game of chess kind of going on, like on the palate here. It's like all these moves are kind of being made. Yeah, I mean, it's a very, very unique profile. I mean, I'll be honest, I don't know if I've tasted a rye like this before. There's just a lot going on. There's a lot of flavors I would never really pick up from a rye whiskey, but it's really good, and I really like it. Very surprised by this one. Very surprised by this one. I'll tell you, hell of a job here by Stellum Spirit. So I want to thank you guys for tuning into this episode of Dusty Dan's Whiskey Reviews. I want to send a big shout out to the team over at Stellum Spirits. They're supplying me with the sample here to review on the channel. Guys, I mean, you talk about like some wizardry in a rye here. I mean, all three sips just completely changed like everything about the profile. Just a lot of different, and I mean, it wasn't only just the flavors, but it was like the positioning of where the flavor started to make that appearance on the palate. It just kind of it played around, flavor shifting forward and then back. Initially that first sip was like this huge smash of it's like a drive-by of just rye spice and fruit and like earthiness. And all of a sudden it changes to this, this orchard fruit flavor, and then rye spices, and then you get a little bit of like pine towards the mid to back palate and the black pepper, and then all of a sudden it changes again. You get this like tarragon and peach jam and apricot that shows up on the palate. I mean, just such a, it was just like, it was like wizardry. I mean, it's just, it may be one of the most evolving rye whiskeys I've probably ever had. I mean, just crazy stuff going on the palate. But regardless to say, I mean, just amazing job here by Stellum Spirits, and their ability to be able to blend, again, is just, it's up there with the best of them. So guys, if you're looking for more reviews like this, make sure you hit the subscribe button, bell notification to be alerted of any upcoming reviews or live streams. You also find me on Instagram at Dusty Dan's Whiskey Reviews. And until next time, guys, stay dusty.